the static in the air. Next gen rising, we don't care about the fear clinging there. Step in line, hear the beat drop. Body, mind, so we don't stop. We won't stop. Train it up, train it high. Next gen reaching for the sky. Push the limit, don't ask why. This is how we're born to fly. To the future, neon glow. Through the fire we will grow. Every move a deadly flow. Next gen rising, let it show. Eyes ahead, the rhythm calls. Stand up tall, we break the walls. Train it up, train it high. Next gen reaching for the sky. Push the limit, don't ask why. This is how we're born to fly.
Hit the ground just like it's bare. Feel the static in the air. Next-gen rising, we don't care about the fear you're clinging there. Step in line, hear the beat drop. Body, mind, so we don't stop. Train it up, train it high. Next gen reaching for the sky. Push the limit, don't ask why. This is how we're born to fly. March to the future, neon glow. Through the fire we will grow. Every move a deadly flow. Next gen rising, let it show. Eyes ahead, the rhythm calls. Stand up tall, we break the walls. Train it up, train it high. Next gen reaching for the sky. Push the limit, don't ask why. This is how we're born to fly.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Next Gen Training. I'm still muted. Hang on. You take the show then. Go ahead.
No, you good. You good.
Oh, I'm good now.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Yeah, you said yes. You good. You good. You good.
Okay. Well, again, welcome certainly to another edition of Next Gen Training here on the Sparta HQ Network. I'm Mr. Bennett, joined by my partner, as always, the coach, Coach Ferg, in the building tonight. Two bald opinions, giving our views on certain topics that we think will be helpful and beneficial. dealing with the four major areas that we like to do a checkup on. So we talk about our pies. We check in every day with our pies. How you doing physically? How you doing intellectually? How you doing emotionally? And how you doing spiritually? So again, a lot of the topics that we cover on the show, certainly touch on those topics. How to be better. And so so we always like to create content that encourages, builds, and uplifts the next generation, but even for the current generations, hopefully give you some things that you can learn from. So, but with that, Coach, how are you? If you want to do your pies checkup to see how you're doing, and we'll take it from there.
What's up, my man? I'm feeling. I'll just go into it. Then I highlight the pie that I am sort of caught up in the most. Physically, um, you know, like I said, I had some tests run. Everything came back negative, but I still have my same old 30-year. I guess it's been about 30-year aches and pains. From the military. Intellectually, just tuning in, just to society and the world, the things, the events are going on, just trying to make sure I stay grounded, make sure me and my wife and my family can make the best decision in case we have to, backpack it or whatever, dig a trench. I don't know. I just have
Right.
always been a little paranoid about life like that.
Yeah.
Make sure I get all my supplies together. Emotionally, um, I'm I guess I'm wary in a sense. Maybe a good worry. I told you about my little interview I had for coaching. I still haven't heard anything back, so just don't know. Hopefully, I hear something tomorrow. The interview went fairly well, so I feel good come out of that. Um,
Awesome.
but I also had a childhood friend that I sort of got into sports. Got him even the opportunity to play. A little poor kid growing up in the hood. Didn't have the resources that I had with my pops and my family. So I sort of, and he's a coach at a high school.
Oh wow, nice.
And I called him for a position. He said he got his squad, his coaching squad. But I'm like, okay, you said that before, but he said give him a couple of days. I haven't heard anything from him. So he said he'll call me back, but I haven't heard from him. So, but
Gotcha.
then it just reminds me of some years ago when I came to him again when I sort of relocated back home. He came with the same statement, and then I ended up going to another school, and we played them three times and 48 nothing, 47 nothing, and 63-13.
Wow.
And the coaching staff that he had compared to me, I used to run them over playing football. But it wasn't the only thing bothering me is that man, we childhood friends. I thought what it takes to get the credentials, and you talk sports as if you are good at it, but he's never really had a winning season. So
Mhm.
but I don't know, man. Maybe I look too much into that.
Right.
Spiritually, um, I'm working on just being more grounded, and just making sure I stay focused on the bigger picture. That's my thing, and not get caught up in I guess the other pies, but making sure that my spiritual capacity is grounded. Getting my rest. Having the conversations with my wife that we need to have on a regular basis. So I appreciate that, especially now because she's looking at life like, listen, we digging in, we're gonna take care of ourselves for the rest of our life, and I like that because you know it makes it a little easier, and we thinking about and she's thinking about the future and our final little home that we can settle into, man, and
Mhm.
just yeah, man. So it's a lot, I guess, but it's a greatly appreciated, man. So yeah. Before I shut up, man, listen, man, salute to all the veterans around the country, man, young and old, man, woman. Salute to y'all, man. You serve, you deserve your benefits, you deserve your rights to be a fabric of America, man. So salute to all the veterans, man.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, man, that's good stuff. And we'll see how things work out. With the coaching opportunity. If this door closes, hopefully that another one comes up, and even better on top of that. Because certainly I know of many young people who could certainly benefit from having you, certainly coaching on any level, any sport. Certainly your voices certainly would be valuable in that space. So again, it's their loss if that doesn't materialize, but I'm sure people can certainly utilize the gifts and talents and experience that you've given over the years to young people. So definitely looking
Yeah,
forward
it's
to
been a
that.
blessing, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But yeah, but as far as for me, obviously, I'm still in Georgia, but I do get a break next week, so I don't have to travel next week, but I do travel the week after that.
Oh, okay.
But I do get a reprieve to be at home for the week. I don't even know which is better because I got to drive. New Jersey Turnpike is there's no picnic. I probably spend as much time traveling on the New Jersey Turnpike as I do flying in airplanes and doing the drive here. So I don't know what's better, being on airplanes or being stuck in traffic.
Traffic.
So I'm not sure what's better there, but nevertheless, just trying to keep it together physically. I'm not getting all my vitamins and nutrition, obviously, being down here. So certainly that's a deficit. And also, I'm trying to stay up on my training. I just need to do more work here because for me, I'm pretty conservative when it comes to spaces. So here at the hotel, that they have a gym, but a lot of times there's not a lot of people in there. There's a lot of women that are in there, and I just as a personal practice of mine, I'm not saying you certainly do what you're comfortable with, but certainly just in the age that we're in, if there's a woman in the gym and she's the only one there and it's a small space, generally I don't put myself in that particular situation. So the times I've gone down early in the morning and sometimes late at night, and somebody always shows up. So I just leave at that point, before I even get. So I try to do push-ups, in my room and body squats and things of that nature in the room. So trying to see, because what I do now is I try to make it up on the weekend. So I do like a full Saturday. I do a total body workout and whatnot that leaves me exhausted by Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. So I like to kind of split it up a little bit. So at least the one thing being home next week, I'll be able to split my workout up like I usually do. But trying to find new modalities of working out and staying fit. When you're on the road or when you're not in, or maybe try to find a gym. I think there's an Anytime Fitness or 24-hour fitness down here. So again, if I know I'm going to be down here for successive weeks, I maybe want to buy like I guess membership so I can get in there into a place and train, in a sort of regular sense. But like I said, these small hotel gyms with that again, unless you know the person well, it's probably not a good idea. As a man, you just don't want to put yourself in a situation where you can be compromised. So that's just something that I don't do. So that's on the physical side. Other than that, I'm feeling pretty good. Emotionally, very good. Very good and productive week. Did a lot of work, especially today. Had some progress, certainly going forward. So very good there. Intellectually, again, always learning, and spirits are just very good right now. You figure my daughter, we shipped her off last Sunday. Took her to the airport, so she's in Grenada. Her medical school classes start on Monday, and then my youngest one, she's getting ready to work in the city. So so everyone's in a good space, and so I'm just very grateful, very thankful for the opportunities that I've been given, and for the mercy and the grace that I've been shown. So on all those levels, feel pretty good overall. But with that being said, certainly for the audience, how are your pies? How you doing physically? How you doing emotionally? How you doing intellectually? How you doing spiritually? Always, certainly we appreciate the chat. Certainly be willing to check in with us and just let us know. We just hope everything is going well with you. And the topics that we talk about generally are going to revolve around these four major areas. How you can improve. If there's one aspect off, we're going to talk about how you can improve in certain areas to get these sections of your life up in order. And so one of the ways we're going to talk about tonight is going to be dealing with this area of communication. So certainly if P, if you're in the back, if you can bring up the slide deck, and we can kind of get into this topic. A lot of different points here. Everyone is talking, but not everyone is communicating. So we're here tonight. We're going to be talking about real communication. It's not just oftentimes what is spoken, A lot of times it's really about what, your body language, how you listen, and really what your intent is. So we're going to be talking about different aspects of communication. Again, how to say less by not only hearing more, but it goes even beyond that. So just we're going to go through some points here, and just talk about this. But Coach, I just want to give it to you real quick because you were the one who kind of fed me these ideas and whatnot. How have you used the points that from the information that you gave? Have you used those in your capacity as a teacher, as a mentor, whatnot? Where how has this been used in your life?
I'm sorry, I was muted. I mean, I learned, I guess, the inappropriate way to communicate in my own house. Just being around my father. Looking back on it, I can say it was probably, uh, you know, unhealthy in a sense the way it was presented, but it kept order in our home. My father didn't speak a lot, but when he spoke, it was quiet for a few days. I don't remember having a lot of chaos in the house when my father was around.
Hmm.
So I just sort of, today it may seem inappropriate, but I guess it was needed in a greater sense coming from a father.
Hmm.
My mother, she might cuss me out. And I'm only talking from an age probably like sixth, seventh grade, probably
Hmm.
when I was probably in my most rambunctious age. My parents didn't curse at us a lot, but they would say shit and damn and get the hell out of my face, especially because I was
Hmm.
silly. I thought I was a Richard Pryor at some point between sixth and eighth grade around my mother. And she was like, boy, take that old silly ass shit away from me. And my father, I didn't really play with him like that because he was always serious, but we watched football together. That was our big thing. And I asked him questions, and he wasn't no type of instructor with it. He like, boy, this is what they do. You do it like this and do it like that. You get it? And instead of just going into it, I just leave him alone. But then as I started to grow and get outside, a lot of my growing up, Mr. Bennett, was always helping the kids in the neighborhood.
Hmm.
I done taught so many little guys how to throw the football, shoot the basketball, run, take off, quick speed. And I'm talking about since I was young. I'm talking about 11, 12. Throughout high school, there's young dudes that went on to be successful in sports, high school, college, that they used to come to me to help them play football, little touch in the neighborhood football. And, used to ask me to help them practice to make the team. And this was in high school. So, and then almost everything I was a part of was a team thing. It was about motivation. It was about communication. And one of the worst teams I've ever been a part of was high school. One of my coaches, he was all redneck, and he didn't do anything to motivate the team in a sense. He didn't let certain people play on the team because of where they lived.
Hmm.
Good players that could have helped. And one of my two best teams, one, when I won the city championship in football, we were undefeated, scored on one time the whole season. And a lot of those guys went on and had their, lives and still rocking and rolling, retiring early. My greatest, probably looking back, like where I became a coach, when I look back when I was 10, I played baseball.
Hmm.
And my head coach was a woman, and we won first place.
That's what's
So
up.
out of all of my experiences, I was coached by a woman early, and she taught us to be sort of respectful of the process in life. You know what I'm saying? Living in the projects, a good woman, man. So, and they always talked about how you talk to people. Respect was a big thing. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. And I look at that today. Even people I can see you find. If you're in a position of authority, I'm gonna say yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. No, I don't care who you are. If I know I got to come to you, I'm gonna be respectful. Age, if you 5 or 10 years older, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. If I'm, you know, what I'm saying things like that. You my age, I might say, brother Bennett or something. I just play it like that. But I'm always conscious of how I respect people in a mutual space, and I share it like it.
Now it's interesting you say that because I know folks they'll say those things even to younger people, like kids. You'll address them as sir and ma'am or whatever as a way of teaching them not
Mm,
only respect, but then how they should be respected as they're growing up or whatnot. So I find it interesting that you're saying you're with older people, but I've even seen I've had teachers in the past, and they would address you as Mr. Bennett or
mm-hmm,
sir or
mm-hmm.
ma'am or what have you, as a way of talking even to young people. And what are your thoughts on that? Not just using it with older people, but when older people are using it to kids, is do you find value in that for kids to be addressed that way?
Yes, yes. A lot of times, especially when you're trying to take a kid from a bad space mentally, even physically, I've usually come with maybe say I meet with you for the first time, right? And you don't know me, I don't know you. I'm trying to gauge how we can navigate in getting you to a better space. It's not about, I ain't gonna talk too much about why, the things you did to get here. We gonna address why you here. Okay, cool. Now we know, and this is things we can do. And it always got to a point where yes, Miss So and So, Mister So and So. When I see you in the hallway, when I see you, hey, Mister.
Hmm.
But the crazy part, I was always the Mister. I was either Mister or Coach. That was it. It never was. I didn't. I very seldom called. Uh, and I think the military put me in this mindset too. I'm a last name guy, Miss Jones. Cause see now when you and think I love about young people when you put that in their head, they sort of look at it like they call me Miss or Mister. What they give you that look like okay you got my attention,
Yeah.
and then I can relay messages a little better. You know what I'm saying, and just have it sort of absorb in a greater fashion than if I was like Tony, why you always, no, Mr. Such and such, how can we make it right?
Mhm.
What do you need?
Yeah.
And then that sort of brings the ears, it makes the antennas come up. And instead of crashing out, let me go get Coach Ferguson. Man, where Coach Ferguson at? Man, I need to talk to him because now they know that when I communicate to them, I'm going to communicate in an unbiased way.
Yeah.
That's what I believe in, unbiased. So let me hear
Yeah.
both sides. Okay, now we can iron it out. Come to realize a lot of times when you work with younger folk, Mr. Bennett, they going east. Both of them are going east, but they're going down different roads. And a lot of those, when they go down different roads, the communication gets twisted and it seems like they're arguing. But when they get a chance to talk about it and communicate about it, they realize they was going in the same direction.
Yeah.
And now we can say, oh, we got something in common. And that sort of builds those connections that I used to love to see, especially with young folk. When I say that, specifically high school, when they realize, okay, we all have some similar things, and men don't get a chance to talk about them. Even young women don't get a chance to talk about their fears with relationships, drugs, police, things that really are concerning to them. Domestic violence, those are topics that are very tricky and they have to be delicately communicated. But the way I found it best, and I'll shut up, is when I can get 10, 12 of y'all and we address those topics. Because now everybody can hear the correct information together, and then we can talk about what I may have heard, what I may have seen, what I experienced. Oh, you experienced the same thing too, and we've been walking around school with our chests out at each other like we tough, but we still fighting a defensive mechanism. So the communication in that capacity has always helped me. It's always helped me. So
Gotcha. All right, let's definitely get into this. First of all, I want to give a shout out to, if I'm pronouncing this right, Terlonius in the building tonight. Appreciate you being here. Elevated
Terlonius.
Mind Healer. Also, good to have you here tonight as well. Thanks for being part of the conversation,
sir.
and certainly look forward to your comments as the show goes on. But let's get into this. So, the first area that I really want to get into is skip there. That's an extra that I had. That's an extra one I had also. I don't know how they got in here, but let's talk about this communication stoppers. So again, everybody a lot of times is looking to talk, but you got to be mindful of those things that cause discord in communication. And you need to be humble enough to do an evaluation in terms of your communication style. Everyone's like, "Oh, I talk the way I talk." And so sometimes again, you can live in that space, but the question I have is, are you getting the outcomes that you want from the communication that you're having? If you truly want to be heard, then are you doing things that allow that to happen? And a lot of times you have to question some of the things that you were doing, and that was basically what you're getting back in reciprocation. So if you're rude, then expect rudeness back. If you're not allowing people to speak, we're going to get into these. Expect for you to get a lot of these same behaviors back, and then you're going to be frustrated because you're not getting in. But you have to invest in conversation as well as just receive from conversation. So these are things that to be mindful of when you're communicating, things that can really do damage to not only communication but to relationships if you don't keep these things in check. All right, so we're going to talk about initially what are some of the stoppers to having good and effective communication, and it's not always verbal, but it's things that you really need to be mindful of. And as I've said many times on the show, the sad part for me is you have a lot of people in our age bracket, Gen Zers and baby boomers, who seem like they either never got this, or as they've gotten older, they've gotten away from it. But again, the principles, whether you're 8 years old or 80 years old, these are things that should always be in the forefront, always things you need to be mindful of, when you're trying to build relationships and communicate effectively with people. So one of the first blockers is, again, the lecturing, right? Nobody wants to be lectured to a point, because it gets to a point where, again, they stop listening to you. And again, I've seen this in my own family, especially with my wife and my daughters. A lot of times at their ages, I tell my wife all the time, you can only say so much. But my wife, a lot of times, she wants to constantly just pour it into them, like you're trying to beat it into them. But anybody who has kids knows the more you talk, oftentimes that you're just going, they're just going to shut you out. So again, the ability to say your piece and then get off of it. But sometimes there's also a pile-on where people, start feeling they're being attacked. So again, you can actually repel people. So again, you got to use some wisdom here. It's not to say that the things that need to be said should not be said. They absolutely do. But just like everything else, timing is important. The words you use is important. And really the mindset and the attitude, are you just trying to tell somebody off, or are you trying to improve the quality of the relationship or help that person see better outcomes? So again, the lecturing, can be something that can turn, especially with young people, can certainly turn them off. So again, how are you able, Coach, to again communicate your points without necessarily lecturing them, where what you're saying starts to become destructive in certain ways, where they start to tune you out? How do you combat that?
I think early, I would say, as it pertains to mine, let me compartmentalize it. Always from a coaching point of view and trying to, I guess, teach about it. I never lectured, now I have, I guess, when I would use it again with players. If they were to participate on a team that I coach, they had to give 100%, and I would sort of I guess you can call it lecturing when I'm trying to say, hey, to be a part of this, you must do this. You will do this. But I may not, but I'm not going to spend a whole practice saying what you're going to do. I'm going to give you the instruction like a lecture, like in college. We're going to sit in and that's one thing I learned early. I'm talking about since I was, I don't know, man, 24 years old when I first started getting into coaching. I'm a create a lecture style environment. So when I'm talking to the team, I'm it's a lecture environment, but I'm not lecturing and pointing out the negatives of what it is. I may have to lecture about this is the standard, this is the expectation, this is what we're going to do. We're going to spend a lot of time lecturing the first week. First week, I have to talk to you all a lot. So you may have, but you're going to have to, once we talk about it, I'm going to make sure we apply what I just talked about. And once I learned through that, and then taking that from the sports arena to the classroom, the lecturing had to be different. And even then, I still had to say, these are the expectations. This is what the standard. We're going to hold everybody accountable based off our expectations that are set. No one is exempt from me to the best or to the worst. Even if you're making all A's or you making all F's, you still got the same standard. So, and I try to spend less time with that. Then I would always go into teaching. Always teaching, always teaching, always teaching, always teaching. Every opportunity. I don't care if somebody threw some paper on the floor. Now, see, we don't throw paper on the floor in our own house.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, man. We got to keep it clean, keep it fresh. That's how I keep life in it, and, everybody just look around. If you see anything, man, just pick it up. I'll bring the garbage can around. I'm participating too. Just gather it and just little things like that. But as a parent, yes, I'm a lecture if you put yourself, myself, and the unit in jeopardy. I'm a lecture. Yes, you're going to school, damn it. You're going to study, you're going to work hard. But I'm not going to lecture out. I very seldom, I probably lectured more before an incident than after an incident.
Mm-hmm.
Because after you did the damage as a youngster, okay, now you see what happened. You see, I ain't even had to punish you. You see what you got to go through now. So this is what we're gonna do. Since we're gonna do that, now you're in a position to where I can be creative about how you gonna get better. Now you're gonna have to read to me. You're gonna have to clean everything. You're gonna do some chores. That's me. As a kid, but as I got older, I didn't have those problems. I expect teenagers to be on cruise control. Maybe that's me overthinking. I'm a Gen Xer. It wasn't too much that I needed from my parents, except a place to stay, maybe a cooked meal. But as far as being self-sufficient, washing clothes, understanding my chore of cutting the grass, my father didn't have to remind me. Taking out the trash, I knew the trash day. I'm taking it out, even to this day. My wife fill up a trash bag. You know them little Walmart bags. Everybody keep those. She'll fill up 2 or 3 of them a day. I'm like, what are you eating? But she only got to take it. We got our spot for it. I'm gathering up. She don't do nothing outside. Nothing. She can't even shovel the snow. And she does her thing in the kitchen and clean up. She don't even wash my clothes. My wife ain't no woman I wash my
Same
own
here.
clothes.
I've done the same thing. Married almost 30 years, and it's the exact same thing. Yeah, I don't wash her clothes, and she doesn't wash mine. So it's absolutely. I just take control of that for sure. But my thing has always been. I think certainly as my kids have gotten older, my thing is I use consequence more so than the lecturing. Like I said, you make your point. But then you have to let things sort of play out in the way they need to play out. Now, they may come back to you and say, hey, you know what you were saying was right. But again, to badger, in fact, we're going to, dive deeper into some of these points as well. When lecturing becomes negative, those are things again with wisdom you're going to have to recognize, right? And it's not just about how smart or how right you are. Ultimately, you're concerned about the outcome. I would rather I don't mind being wrong as long as I get the outcome. So with that, some people lecture out of wanting to be proven right. There's like a lot of people who have that attitude of wanting to be right all the time. And like I said, it's that's never been a thing with me. And I think a lot of times that's where that comes from, that lecturing spirit is in you wanting to demonstrate to people how smart you are, how right you are, and when things do manifest themselves in the way they do, then these are ones who says, "See, I told you that wouldn't work," or "I told you this or that," or whatever. So again, people have that, but I think in a lot of ways, I think it's a sign of insecurity. I don't mind being wrong. I don't mind apologizing, and I don't mind being corrected. Certainly when necessary. But certainly, a lot of the people who lecture, a lot of it is not necessarily coming with good motives. So again, that's something that you need to be able to check yourself on. If you find yourself in the way that you're lecturing, the only question I have for you is, what outcomes are you getting? And if they're not the outcomes that you're getting, in fact, if you're getting worse outcomes, then you need to really reconsider your approach to the situation and not just, lecture for the sake of lecturing. But the next point here, again, blaming. So again, it's a lot of times, especially when you're working in a team environment, when you're working in a project-based environment, certainly blaming is a very easy go-to when things go wrong. But again, if you want to talk about how to not only salvage the relationship, how to solve the project, how do you win? A lot of times it's not about the blaming because again, that doesn't solve the situation. How can we go? How can we learn from this situation? How can we get better from here? But blaming somebody, for a fault, when you can really think about it, everyone can bear some blame for something. This happens a lot again in the IT space. When something isn't delivered, the finger pointing starts. And everybody says, well, we're trying to do this, but we're waiting on you. And we couldn't do this because we're waiting on you. Everybody can take some blame and responsibility in the situation. But is that going to solve or resolve the situation? Yes. Certainly, if you get through certain things, there's always that opportunity for review, right? You got through the challenge or whatever, in the season, whatever. How did the season go? What could we do to get better? What went right? What went wrong? There's certainly a time and place for that kind of reflection. But certainly in the moment, I don't know how effective that is. So again, blaming people for stuff and a lot of times that blame is, you got to ask yourself, is even that blame even warranted, or at least to the degree that you're giving it? Again, these can certainly be stoppers to effective communication when people are being blamed for things and they're feeling somewhat victimized. And it could be that it wasn't their fault at all. But again, a lot of people, they just need some target or some scapegoat for something that went bad, when if you look systematically, there could have been a host of things that went bad. So your thoughts on the blaming aspect, certainly in a team or culture, how effective is that when people are blamed for things? Does that really, help to improve the outcome? What's your thoughts on blame?
There are, for me, and and again, it's two sides to my coin because in coaching, I've never pointed the finger at players or blamed them for a loss because I never coach my teams to lose. When we lose, I just say, okay, man, it's a part of the game. Guess what we got to do next week? We got to practice harder. Y'all see how y'all feeling when y'all walking off of this field. Y'all sad, ain't you? And losing hurts, don't it? So why not use that to become better in the week? Now, when when I've always been in control, head coach, then yes, the energy is it solidifies throughout the team.
Mhm.
My second string will come out there and in a ball against the team's first string because that's how I coach them. But last year when I was coaching, we played a game, right? And I watch coaches and things like that. Like I said, I was just an assistant out there. The way that they were blaming the players, the way that they were making excuses for their lack of understanding of the game, right? And I was listening to it. So what happened was after the game, and we were in a huddle, and the coaches, they ain't, I don't know what the hell, I don't remember what the hell they were saying. I just knew walking to that huddle, like, I got to let these players know it ain't their fault. And what I did when they got through, I got right in the middle. I said, man, y'all come here, man. I said, let me tell y'all something. Y'all didn't lose this game. I said, the coaches lost this damn game. Don't y'all walk away from here believing that y'all didn't play good enough. I said, y'all had nothing to, I said, we lost as a team, but y'all didn't lose this game. I said, the coaches failed y'all. And I got to a point where I was getting so passionate about it, I think I cursed.
Mm.
And all the players were like, coach, calm down, calm down. Because they saw it. And from that point, because we had lost, that was our second game in a row we lost. From that point, we won 6 in a row.
Right.
I started putting the pressure on the coaches. See, because when I go to coach, I'm trying to see where the players can improve in what they're doing. I'm only focusing on the players. I ain't got time to be talking about what the game was last night. No. I'm looking at everything as an operation, techniques, seeing the players that are still scared to get in there and, play football, the ones that are still timid. I got to find out, hey, come here, man. No, you got to get in there. And some, when they was getting it, they was getting it. They was and they started to realize, dang, this game is fun. And coaches would be like, man, don't tell him, man. What you mean, man? This man done made 4 tackles in a row. What you talking about? Why would I not tell him he did a hell of a job?
Yeah.
Why would I not do that? But anyway, so I don't blame. Only place I really not understood, I always understood. Only place I see blaming as a weapon, as an excuse, as a lack thereof is YouTube. Everybody's blaming somebody else for some shit that happened to them. Everybody, instead of saying, you know what, okay, they did this action. I see it. It happened to me. But that ain't got nothing to do with me still being a better person over on this side over here.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what people do, man. Well, today it's more, I don't know, it's spoken a lot. I don't know if you went around when you was younger blaming people that you knew like, you know what I'm saying? As you get older, you think about it, but I don't think when you was coming up in your career, I don't think you was sitting around blaming people about stuff.
No, for
maybe
sure.
I'm
But
wrong, but I
as you
just
get
don't.
older, you start to see that it is a worthless exercise because again, it doesn't
Yeah,
yield a result. I can go back over my life and blame even my parents for things that didn't go
yeah,
right.
you can
Again, a lot of
blame
people know my
everybody.
story. I didn't have the greatest relationship with my parents or necessarily the greatest upbringing. But it got to a point where looking at my life where it is now, what is there to use in blaming? At some point, you take ownership over the decisions that you make, and that's the only person you can be accountable to is yourself. So again, how we in this situation, how we gonna get out of it? And that to me, that just needs to be the mindset rather than again, there'll be a time for again retrospective and review and looking at processes, what could be improved and what cannot be improved or whatever. But going in saying it's your fault, again, that becomes meaningless at the end of the day, especially if you're still in the situation where you're still being held accountable for outcomes. What are we going to do now? All right, you made a mistake or whatever. Fine, let's see if we can fix it. All right. So blaming though, it do too much of that,
Hmm.
that can destroy teams, it can destroy organizations and relationships. So again, you got to be very careful. And also blaming in terms of public. Look, there might be a time where you might have to pull somebody aside and be like, look, you need to step up in this situation. Blame should never be public in a conversation. If you got to go in front of, I never believed in getting on a player in front of the other players in the locker room.
Mm,
I mean, that was something. Now, sometimes the coach he had smoke for everybody, like the whole starting five. He just cussed all of them out. Said, I'm gonna put the bench warmers into the game, which was me. I'll start the bench warmers over you guys. That's how bad you guys were going. So again, so I've seen that. Again, I don't. Sometimes it's a little easier if everybody's getting the lashing or whatever. It seems like you can take it. I don't know if you've seen that even in your military career. If the sergeant or whatever is going to call everybody out, you can kind of take it a little bit better. But when you're isolated in the blame situation, it becomes very difficult to handle a lot of times. So sometimes, if like I said, I remember my basketball coach. If he had smoke, it was the whole starting five. And he'd be like, I'll put all you guys out. Bennett get in the game. I'm taking all you get to teach you a lesson. All y'all get out and get in the game. So I've seen some of that. But you got to be really careful in terms of how you bring that up. There's a time and place. There's going to be review, all kinds of situations. But again, careful how you go about doing that, because again, that could be a closer, especially if you still need to maintain a relationship and go forward. It's going to be difficult if you're always blaming people. So again, be mindful of that. The next, yes, sir.
Hey, Brother Bennett, real quick before we go to the next. In the military, it almost debunks everything
Mhm.
we're saying in a sense. Because when
Mhm.
you're in basic training, that drill sergeant, he will blame you. He will tell you, you're the reason that we failed this mission. They will call you out, individual. But guess what? They're going to hold
Right,
everybody else accountable. You sneak some food into those barracks, knowing you ain't supposed to
right.
have no food in there, some cookies, a crumb, and they find it, they're going to probably let you eat it. But the whole 65 other guys,
Yeah,
guess what? They're going to do an hour's
some
worth of
push-ups. Right? I
calisthenics.
remember that I don't know if you ever saw that movie, Full Metal
So,
Jacket. Yeah, that
yeah,
that
Full Metal
that,
Jacket, that
he
gave
was
a
eating
glimpse.
the
I,
donut, and everybody
I,
else had to do push-ups. So yeah, yeah,
it happens, man. Now, this new army is different, but yeah, but it also helped you
yeah,
grow out of that
for
real
sure,
quick.
for
So,
sure.
yeah,
All right, so the next, all right, so the
muscle
next
update,
point
brother.
here is again interrupting. Again,
Oh my God.
we're in this YouTube space, and you can't get enough of that, right? I mean, trying to you don't have the patience to allow a person to finish their point. Interrupting in a conversation is one of the biggest ways you can disrupt it. I don't care if you're married. I don't care, if you're friends or whatever. Cutting people off when it gets to the point where the person's saying "Stop cutting me off," the conversation has been dramatically compromised at that point. And again, I think a lot of it has to do with insecurity. Just like the thing again, the lecturing, just like the interrupting, it's always about you wanting to be right rather than allowing a person to make their point. Now, you can take the Ginsu knife and you can dissect every point that they made when you have a chance to speak. But again, a lot of times that floor is not reciprocated. You're patiently allowing them to speak, and then as soon as you start speaking, then they're cutting you off. And again, a lot of times you just have to stop this. Look, are we going to have a conversation or not? Or was it all about you making your point, but I can't make mine? So again, that's an easy way for conversation to go awry, for conversation to stop and to shut down. So the interrupting again, I got time, you know, and it's to me it's a sign of respect when you allow people to make their points. Kill it all you want to later, but at least allow them to make the point before you jump all over it. So, coach, this is a big one again, especially in this YouTube space. Nobody wants anybody to speak and it's something that when those conversations get to that point, I just still it's not even worth me staying around the conversation because clearly you're trying to drive an agenda and a way of thinking that doesn't allow for any other views or opinions in that particular environment. So what's your thoughts on that?
This this word here, interrupting, probably ties the last two or three we just discussed together. Because on YouTube, everybody wants to be right. Everybody wants their point to be more valid than the next person. So yes, and let me cut you off. When people are trying to push a certain agenda, yes, they seem to And I've been victim of it sometimes, of trying to jump in a sense. And it happens, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes it just happens. But there's two sides to the interrupting. Some people do it maybe to just add on or something, but a lot of people, when they just, I guess, scrutinizing every little word you say before you even get to complete your process, then yeah, they may be. I look at them a little skeptical, like, okay, what you trying to push? We all are up here just discussing it based off our own point of view. So let me say what I gotta say, and then if you have any questions and need me to explain, then yeah. But we all like to be right, man. Our point is, in this ability. I mean, we do it even in sports. And then, hold up, man, Kobe's better than LeBron. No, LeBron's better than Kobe. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. I think most men understand it in sport sometimes, just in good sport. Uh, but when it comes to like matters of real life, I think it's going to be subjective to everybody. You know what I'm saying? I take things from you. I take things from everybody that I've interacted with in my life. Some nuggets that I hear, like, oh, there might be something I can hold on to. You know what I'm saying? And I learn from stuff that I know I ain't gonna do. Like, oh, they did. Oh, I couldn't do that, but
Yeah,
we do it.
yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah. Next point here. Okay, so we talked about lecturing, we talked about blaming, we talked about interrupting. All this has sort of a common tie-in to be overbearing. Again, my wife, I love her, but sometimes she can be overbearing when it comes to, again, you want to make your point so much and you simply do not. Shout out to Mariana Constantine in the building tonight. Good to have you on board as always. But some people just will not only not make you let you make your point, but they'll try to beat their point into you until you relent, almost to the point saying, you know what, you're right, because you just don't want to carry the argument anymore. All right. So again, just people who are just so in their feelings, they're so opinionated about everything. There's no room. They suck all the air out of the room to where there's no other conversation that is acceptable. Again, being an overbearing person, yeah, you can shut down communication very quickly to the point where, again, people just don't want to be around you. And I've seen people like that, and again, it's not fun. Sometimes you have to do it for work reasons or what have you. But again, overbearing can really damage a conversation, and it's not necessarily about what's being said. It's about the attitude. It's about the tenor. It's about the intent. It's about the motivation. Oftentimes, it goes down to your ego and being so fragile that, again, you will not allow for any other voices to overcome yours. So again, you are overbearing as a result of it. And I've seen it certainly with mothers and daughters, with fathers and sons. Again, grown people, and you're still trying to basically boss them around. And again, that is something that can really damage a lot, and has damaged a lot of relationships, adult parent relationships, especially when you have this kind of mindset. So again, your thoughts on being overbearing. Yes, you got to be firm sometimes. Yes, you make your points. But again, that kind of spirit can really wreck any attempts at, relationship or organization or what have you, when you have an overbearing, dominant person. The only reason why a lot of times these people stay in power is, again, because they may get results. But again, when you talk about if they can talk among themselves and do a personal evaluation, they can say, look, this person can go. But a lot of times management, because they're so driven by results, they'll keep an overbearing person around because they get them what they want, which is the result. But again, that wears out. These days, especially the Bobby Knight type of coaching and whatnot in basketball, the guys who just do all that I think is becoming a dinosaur at the end of the day. And you don't see too many of those firebrands. There's a reason why Bill Belichick is not in the NFL anymore. Because again, as successful as he was, and that's the only reason why he stayed for so long, it got to a point where the juice wasn't worth the squeeze because of his overbearing nature. So your thoughts on being overbearing, and I had a couple. I had a couple pictures up here already in terms of what I intended, but I just thought when I saw this one, I was like, yeah, this this is the bear itself was probably the best picture I could have put up in this particular situation. So, your thoughts on this one, Coach?
You know, it's funny that you use Bill Belichick. I didn't consider him as an overbearing coach. I just, as a coach, I think he set a standard and he refused to bow down from that standard. I look at the work. I don't think I've ever been an overbearing person towards another person though, because I've always believed if I gotta push my point across, I always overtalk you, always, think less of what somebody's feeling or thinking. I didn't stay around it too long though, and I didn't, I very seldom got in outside of my friends I grew up with. I very seldom talk sports, in the capacity, especially like even in the capacity that we do, on Wednesdays. The fact that it's happening is okay. That shows some growth in me because when you listen to people whose ideologies about sports, and I'm not as committed to teams like that, just over my overall experience. So I appreciate all of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly about sports, and just saying that the way I coach is better than somebody else's. I never, took that approach to it. Personal life, I'm always open to hear what people have to say about stuff, and some people when they have some of the, I would just say the hideous ideas, they're a little overbearing with it. And when you're thinking about it logically, hold up, this should have never worked. You don't want to hurt their feelings and say it, especially with young, but there's always opportunity to talk out the process. On YouTube, I let people know, man, I don't care about your feelings in this space. We're adults. And if you come with me and say, "Hey, brother Ferg, man, I got this rocket built. We can take it to the moon." I'm gonna ask you 100 questions about that damn rocket. Right. But I'm not gonna just discount what you did. But now when you start talking about my life and my emotions and my existence, hey man, are you sure it'll work? What did you do? I've seen people try it and it failed, and that's just out of fear. But yeah, I'm not gonna push my ideology on people outside of like my son when he was younger. Like your ass going to school, and if I got to talk to you about, but even in that, I'm gonna do it in a short window, brother Bennett. I'm not going to be talking about, especially the stuff I talk about the first week of practice. I ain't talking about that the fifth week of practice. If I got to spend too much time talking about what should be done, then I'm failing as a coach. I'm going to talk to you about what's going to happen. I do everything military style. We're going to go, if I got to draw it on the board. We're going to talk, ask questions, understand the play, the number, and the movement. And then we're going to go outside. We're going to walk through it a couple of times. And then also we're going to start speeding it up. But when it comes to communicating, I'm not going to be pressing to you. And I'm not going to let you press to me who you are, what you are. You're going to show me. And so I've always looked at it like that. I look at actions along with the words, and I don't get caught up in words too much. But if you showing me, I'm like, shit, that's solid right there. I can rock with that. I can understand. Even though our ideologies initially may be different, because again, we on two different roads going in the same direction, and until our roads get closer together, now we can realize, we say the same thing.
Shout out to Bro in Berlin, certainly in the chat tonight. He's asked some very interesting questions. One of the questions that he asked is, do we believe that today that it's harder to communicate with this generation as opposed to the past generation? So in other words, we're talking to the Gen Zers and the millennials. But was it any harder when the baby boomers were trying to talk to us? It's just this, just something that just happens in every generation, or do you find something particularly challenging about this generation that seems to be a bit harder than maybe in past generations? I could certainly buy some of that. I certainly think. I mean, I got three daughters, certainly in that Gen Z bracket and whatnot. So certainly, communicating with them can certainly be challenging. But more so again, how they respond to things, I think is certainly a bit different than what it may have been in the past. But I think even for me, I still put the onus on me, just given the situation, learn to communicate better. I think again, as a coach, if you're not getting the attention of your players in one way or another, and I've heard this about coaches, I watch a lot of biographies. Vince Lombardi, the great Vince Lombardi, he had a certain, when he was coaching college football, he had his coaching style, the way he wanted things done and whatnot, and he wasn't getting the attention of the players. He actually reached out to the players. It's like, what am I saying or what am I doing that's not working? I mean, you would think Vince is like the god of football, so to speak, but he asked when he wasn't getting a result, how can I do things better? He took input from people in terms of how you can be more effective in this communication, and he listened to a lot of that. Yes, he still demanded of you in certain ways, but he was able to still get his point across. But again, it's we have to learn to how to speak to the younger generation at the level that they're at. Again, my thing is about outcomes. And if I'm in a situation where who's going to have more control over the outcome, is it going to be the younger person or is it going to be me? I'm always going to put the onus on me in terms of having more control over the outcome I want by changing my behavior versus just complaining all the time about the behavior of young people. Oh, these young people aren't this, they're not that. I still need to communicate to them. So again, I'm going to put it on me more so than on another, certainly than another person. At least that's my approach to that. But before we go on to the next point, Coach, just to address this question, it does, some people certainly can say that young people today are definitely a lot more sensitive than generations in the past or what have you. Your thoughts on that before we go on to the next step? I just want to entertain since he certainly put the time to ask.
Real quick, from my experience over the last 15 years, a lot of younger people are coming from a defeater's mindset out the gate. A lot of them are not encouraged that they are good already. They're already good enough, and to just be better from that. I think the thing that's always helped me, I never pointed the finger saying that you're already doing something bad. They already know that. So I've always just took the approach like, hey, you're good enough right here. Let's just get this. Let's just move forward right here. I expect for you from this point to be your best version, even when you're like struggling with that. When I still want you to show up. Don't quit about it, because it is a phase. We all go through it, especially as teenagers. We all ugly at some point throughout our high school career. Appreciate that, and just be willing to just accept that you can be better and tap into your creative talents that you have already, regardless of how minimal others believe it is. I believe it's always a great thing when you can show your talents based off, just your natural abilities. And let's tap into that.
Absolutely. Again, thanks, Bro and Brolin. Thanks for asking the question. Certainly welcome anytime to entertain one. Next point here: giving unsolicited advice. Unsolicited. So now this one I got to be a little careful with, because the unsolicited piece, a lot of it has to do with what they're actually giving you. If it's great advice, generally the person says, hey, you know what, that's a good point. That's great advice. So thank you for that. If it's something they don't like to hear, then a lot of times they'll say, I didn't ask you. So a lot of it depends on what you're giving in the advice versus the advice itself, the fact that you just gave it. You know what I mean? So to me, this is a tricky one for me, because again, if a person's talking to you, sometimes you don't know if it's a And I even had to do this with my daughter. Sometimes, especially my middle one in particular, she's very particular. Sometimes she just wants to vent. She's not looking for advice. She just wants to vent. And there have been a couple times where I didn't necessarily get that message. And so certainly I had to say, stop the conversation and says, or do you want to have a dialogue, or do you want my advice on the situation, or are you just looking to vent? And so she would say, oh, I just need to vent. And then I'm like, okay, vent away. I got you all night if you want to vent. No problem. Because again, as I guess as being a father, as a man, we're problem solvers. We like to find solutions to things. And so that's always going to be something that's going to be first in priority for us. Again, find the solution. But sometimes it's not about that. And so a lot of times it's simply about just giving them the space to express themselves to a trusted person and not necessarily step in. So a lot of times I'm just like, I'm not in my head. I may ask a question just to kind of get clarity on what they said. But a lot of times, I try not to just step in and says, well, this is what you need to do in this particular situation. Sometimes, again, especially I would say this certainly with ladies, a lot of times it's simply about you just being there and giving them the time and listen to what they're saying to get it off their chest in a way that they might not have been comfortable going. Obviously, they can't do it at their jobs. They might not be able to do it in their schools or some other people, who may not have understanding and whatnot. But again, if you have the patience to listen, a lot of times they just want that. So I just started asking, is this a venting session, or is this, you want to have a dialogue and talk, and do you want to work some things out? And if it's just a venting session, let them vent. But giving unsolicited, okay, generally is not a good idea. But again, I will say, as I've said in the past, a lot of times it's what you are giving prior to doing it. So again, we typically don't have open panels. We tend to run a fairly tight ship here. Usually we try to keep the show in the 2 hours. So again, we typically don't open up to a lot of panels in this particular show. There's other shows certainly within the Sparta HQ network where you can certainly raise questions. The Gray Area, which comes on certainly Sparta HQ network Sunday evenings at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. We have a call-in show once a month where people can come up and they can talk to us about any topic that we've talked about or what have you, or even on this topic, Bro Berlin, if you want to join us the next time where we have a live call-in show, that might be an opportunity to engage, but just to keep the show kind of tight. We typically don't allow for call-in shows. But again, thank you certainly for your interest in wanting to join the conversation. But we certainly ask contributors, certainly make your opinions known in the chat, and certainly if I find a salient point, I'll certainly be sure to raise it. But your point on this one, Coach, as far as unsolicited advice, what do you stand on this one? Like, I'm a little gray. There's a little gray area for me right here.
Yeah, I'm with you, my man, because I guess coming from being in a space where my advice was always solicited and needed, and I had to make sure I was given the most appropriate information and the best unbiased information. Yeah, I'm all for that. I'm gonna do that. You don't have to ask me. Kid come to me wanting the answer for something, I'm gonna make sure that they do the work to get the right answer. I'm gonna do my part, lead them to the right information. They're gonna have to read and recite it to me, and that's how I've always looked at it. Coming to YouTube space, almost every time we give advice is unsolicited here to me. Like I said, we want to make sure that our experiences, our thoughts, and I guess feelings get, expressed as much as everyone else's. So, yeah, I think I know I'm guilty of this a lot, giving unsolicited advice.
Although I wouldn't say this now, what we give on the show is not unsolicited. Everybody who joins the show, they have a right to either watch or not watch the show. So the theme of the show is we're giving these are two bald-headed guys in their 50s sharing their
Right, yes.
experiences in terms of life, in terms of coaching, in terms of training, all of us stuff. We're kind of giving it. This is a supermarket approach. You can
Hmm.
take it or you can leave
Yes,
it,
that's it.
but we don't
Hallelujah.
force people to come
Yes.
into the space and sit down and listen to us. So I guess, but again, when you're in that situation where you have people in your life, you know, there's a time. Sometimes, like I said, with my daughter, I'll ask her, "Do you want to talk or do you want to vent?" And if it is a vent, then I just shut up and I just let them have that time to try to get whatever it is that's off their chest. Just give me some notice ahead of time if you don't
Mhm.
want to have an exchange or you don't want my opinion. I don't take it personally that you don't want my opinion at this particular time. Maybe you might want it later, but for right now, we're saying just listen to me. Okay, I'm good with that. As long as I know what's going on, we got no problem. My ego isn't affected at one way or another in that regard. But yeah, be careful when you're giving unsolicited because sometimes, you might be giving information that, again, not fully informed. Oftentimes you're giving information just based on a little bit of information. You may not know the full story because a lot of times when a person's talking like that, a lot of times they're not giving you the full story. They're just giving you their perspective. You don't know all the details, all the nuances. You weren't there. So again, sometimes just again use some wisdom in terms of when you decide to intervene and put your 2 cents in on the situation. It may not be the right time for it, but again, use some wisdom in that regard. The next point, again, criticizing. Again, this is again another gray area because again, everybody takes, and again, I'll agree with Bro in Berlin with this, especially you talk about Gen Zers and whatnot. Anything that you say to them can be taken as a criticism. Anything, even if it's like great job, but you could have did this a little better. So it doesn't matter if it has even a tinge of critique to it. It's taken. They just lose all their stuff. Forget everything that else that takes place. They just lose their stuff altogether. You know, I know. I'll share this. One of my daughters, she graduated, and the other two siblings, they were clowning her for her footwear. Wait a minute, she graduating. What do you can? My thing is why is her footwear important at this point in time? I mean, she's keep the main thing the main thing. But for them, it's like, but
Yeah.
for regardless of how the day went, everything was about, oh, they coming at me because of my foot game. You know what I mean? So I get some of that in terms of the sensitivity that they have in terms of their looks, in terms of their what they're wearing, in terms of a lot of things they can be certainly hypersensitive to and take anything that you say as a criticism. Here again, I think is where relationship is important. So I think that right time, right place to have the conversation and have and asking proper questions to kind of get them to see, yeah, I could have did that better. Again, that's something that I've worked on over the years to get better at, not just coming at them saying, boom, you need to do this, you should have did this better or whatever. A lot of times it's about helping them to see, okay, how can I be better in this situation? How can I make this situation better? But again, in that particular moment, that's not the time for criticism at that particular time. There's certainly things that are more important. So again, be very careful with your criticisms and also the attitude and tone. Some just criticize just to flip you off, and that's real also, just to dig at you. So again, you have to have certainly a tougher skin a lot of times to see that coming. But you with your criticism, again, is it coming from a genuine place at a genuine time? But in the moment when things are happening, that may not be the right time. So I will say again, wisdom is so important in when things that have to be said, when it's said, how it's said, makes a difference in terms of the outcomes. I keep going back to that, the outcomes that you want from the exchange that you had. So, Coach, your views on criticism and how would you define criticizing versus critique? How would you define that?
It's interesting you asked it in that perspective, right? Everything I do about coaching is critiquing, from critiquing myself to the players, possibly other teams. Yeah, just part of it. My style, how I approach the game, how I approach the players, how I approach just preparing for the game. I'm a stickler for the preparation of the game. I'm big on that. Even down to the water breaks. You can't come back out on the field unless you drink at least a half a cup of water every time we take a break. You know, stretching. Even in my own life, I think about stuff I have to do like weeks in advance before I even do it, because I don't want to forget any detail. I don't utilize. Well, I'll say this. I don't know, man, because life is two different places now. You got the real world, Brother Billy, where you're going out and doing your work and you communicating with your family and your friends. And then you got the YouTube life, you know what I'm saying? To where a lot of it is about almost every live ain't critiquing, it's criticizing. And especially if it has anything to do with a man or a woman, it's a criticism. There's going to be some criticism going on. And I think what's helped me over the years is that younger, it wasn't looked at as criticism, because even when we used to sit around and tell jokes on each other, you could call it a form of criticism because they talking about some of the most vulnerable things about you, and we're laughing at it. So it's interesting. It's okay to see how this word has evolved to the worst. And like you said, did you say anything about the way somebody hold their hands to the way they tie their shoe? Oh, you're criticizing me. As a coach, even with children, I wouldn't recommend always pointing out the negative things that may happen within them growing up, especially the things that is going to be something that is going to be a mistake. Teaching the kid how to ride a bike. What do I look like trying to say I'm going to teach my son or daughter how to ride a bike, and I go buy them a bike that's probably too big, and I get them on the bike. They ain't never paddled before. They ain't never held their balance before. And I just say, okay, we're going to ride. I didn't get them a helmet, knee pad, wrist pad, hand pad. And I just start pushing them down the street. Then I say, man, you don't even know how to ride a bike. No. But, in critiquing, especially in sports and positioning, gymnastics, you're going to critique the player or the participants' techniques in order to get the best result. Especially when you're teaching something, you have to demonstrate it, and then even in that criticizing, it should come after all other, techniques that apply to that particular thing have been exhausted. And I'll shut up. You teach people how to do certain programming. And if you teaching them 42 times and each time they seem to not grasp it or they just dismissive of what you're teaching in the moment, then I can see, hey man, damn, you ain't paying attention to nothing I said. I've been talking. What the hell? What are you doing? Oh, you're judging me. No. You know what I'm saying? So I think people get it messed up and twisted, especially on YouTube space, man. Everybody's believe and feel they've been criticized just because somebody calls something out that may not be conducive to my growth, but it may stabilize. Some people like chaos, and you calling out the fact that they live in a chaotic life, it could be criticizing to them because they're comfortable in that space.
And you see a lot of people who are heavy on the criticism but can't take criticism at the same time. You see that a lot too. So you got that.
Say it one more time for the people in the back,
who
brother.
are off to give the criticism but can't take criticism at the same time. So you got these sensitive people who got smoke for everybody else. And that just seems to be a growing thing. Certainly, again, in this age of social media and whatnot, you have a lot of people who are, who build platforms on criticizing other people. But if someone has a response video for them, then it's like, oh, everyone's coming at me. So So again, this is one of those that again you got to use some. You can certainly take some salt, but again, there's a time and place and how you do things or whatnot, especially whether you decide to do things privately or publicly. I think that certainly makes a difference between how a person receives that which you give them, and again, what spirit are you coming in with. So the next point here, again, sarcasm. Now this to me, sarcasm to me is like seasoning, right? So it's like anything else. A little bit of seasoning can go a long way to make a dish taste better. A little, especially when you're around friends. Sarcasm, sprinkled here and there, makes everybody laugh or whatnot. But the problem is, a lot of times, if you have a sarcastic personality, a lot of times the issue is you don't know when to stop. And all it takes is one too many. It's like you putting salt in a dish, and being in the South, I got there's a lot of salt down here. I don't know why Southern people need so much salt in their food. I don't get it, but be that as it may, nevertheless, you put one more dash that's too much, and it can ruin a dish. That's how I look at sarcasm. It can break up a mood, but at the same time, it can really, things can turn. I've seen a laughing moment turn into a confrontation just like that because you went one time, you cut just 1 inch a little bit too deep. You kept going after something. Yes, the joke was made. Yes, it was funny. Let's move on from that. You kept going to it. Because a lot of times sarcasm, it's not just the one thing that's said, it's the bombardment over time. Every time I'm together, you keep bringing it up. Every time you keep saying, okay, it's the same old joke. All right, we get it. Let's move on. But you don't want to get on. Okay, so do you mean something by this? Is this something that we got to talk about? Because you keep going there. So again, sarcasm, be very careful what it's used. A little bit amongst friends, amongst colleagues, it can really lighten the mood up, especially in a tense situation. I've seen rooms just burst out in laughter when a person says something, that time. But again, you got to be very diligent and very careful with its usage. Too much, you can go being from friends to fighting very quickly, and I've seen it in real life. Coach, your thoughts on this one?
Man, I guess I don't know, man. I don't take sarcasm too serious. Never have, like I said, because growing up in the time that I did, again, me and my friends used to sit around and just wait for opportunities for somebody to say something stupid or just do something silly, and we always looking for opportunity to say a wise joke. Once I became an adult and start getting away, I never really played those type of games with other like people that I met in life.
Mm.
I never was really sarcastic about anything with people. I've only had this type of, I guess, engagement around people that I grew up with, people that I used to go play with, little pitch up football, run full court basketball, hometown people. As far as people out in the world outside of that, I never really had this type of approach. And I didn't even play this type of game. If somebody says something trying to be sarcastic, I usually said something back.
Mhm.
But I didn't go on back and forth. It wasn't going to be no back and forth, Somebody, I don't know, somebody like, oh man, he's bald headed. Yes, I'm bald headed. Mamas and aunties always like the good bald headed man. I say something like that and I just
Yeah.
move on. I'm not going to get to them. Oh, you call me bald headed. It's true. I am bald headed. So I just use things like that to sort of just
But I guess
always,
right.
yeah,
But I guess the question would be: at what point does everybody in the world, even Stevie Wonder, can see that you're bald?
yeah,
So at what point do the bald jokes stop working?
stop. Yeah,
You know what I mean? So again, so you got to ask yourself if you're someone who's prone to doing that. And a lot of guys say, "Oh, I'm just breaking balls. I'm just doing whatever." Again, you have to be careful with that because again, one time too many can certainly cause a situation. So
Mhm.
again, you got to be wise with it. I mean, certainly, yeah. I remember we at the lunch table and we doing the dozens, and we would go to mom. We would call it out ahead of time.
Yeah.
We talking about moms.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to do that, then stay out of this one. But so
Right.
everybody knew the mom joke didn't come out of left field.
Yeah.
That was out of bounds.
Yeah.
But
You had to set that
if
stage.
you said mothers are in play, then boom, your mama this, your mama that. But because everybody understood where it was coming from. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? But for some people, when again, like I said, a lot of times it's in succession. It's one smart remark after another smart remark after another smart remark. At what point do you say, look, do we got a problem? Do we
Nah, brother Bennett, you froze, man. Yeah. At what point do
have a
we
problem?
have a problem? You was froze, brother Bennett.
Yeah, it was coming up. I was looking at that here, but all I was saying just to wrap up was that again, just make sure that when it becomes a repeated, just make sure that you know when to cut it off. All right, so let's get
Yes.
into. I think we got a couple more points here on the negative on the stoppers. I think this is the last one I want to talk about. Again, this closed body language. So again, they say most language isn't spoken. Most language is shown. Is nonverbal. So again, you try to have a conversation with someone. What can shut down a conversation is when you appear uninterested in the conversation. You on your phone, someone's trying to talk something serious with you. You be like, "Yeah, I'm listening. What is it? I'm listening." I mean, look, are you engaged with the person or are you not? So again, your body language oftentimes is a sign that okay, that I'm not. I'd rather be somewhere else, and that can also again shut things down. If I'm going to talk to coach and say, "Look, coach, I need to run something by you. Some serious. Can we have some time to talk?" I'm going to give him my undivided attention in that particular situation. So again, the type of body language do you use? Do you roll your eyes? Do you sigh? Do you look down? Is there engagement, or is this like let's just get this over with? Or I'd rather be somewhere else, or I'd rather be talking about something else. Again, be very careful of those two. Your body language says a lot in terms of how you respect and how you relate to the person who's talking to you. So, your thoughts on this one? I think we'll get into the second half and we'll wind this down.
I mean, yeah, and in my okay, I guess really just in my engagement of somebody new, I learned this throughout the process of working with people. One of the easiest ways to break a barrier as far as communication is eliminate a barrier between you. Um, that's why I appreciate groups because I would always sit everybody in a circle. I didn't put people in a desk like a classroom and I'm up here doing all the walking and talking. No, I would eliminate that barrier with the desk or table and we would just sit in a circle and everybody can sort of gauge and see each other's eyes, see how people are sitting in the seat, see how people are playing. What we used to call tiddlywinks back and forth. Who's distracted? Who's, you know what I'm saying, speaking out of turn. All of those things can be seen by the group, and it's sort of about a sense of respect. That's why I always appreciate that
Gotcha.
process, especially for young. I wouldn't say I think it works for both men and women because we all are here for a reason. And when we can talk about the reasons why we're here, then we can start making ground. But if I'm talking to someone like face to face and they got their arms folded and they hun and han and hooing, everything YouTube would give you is embodied in this whole topic right here.
Mhm.
Somebody give you say your statements or your response to whatever video or topic. Somebody's looking around. Somebody's waiting to respond, and man, listen, it happens. I've been guilty of it because, again, going back to earlier, I want to get that point out before it get too far down the road because I'm older and my brain ain't thinking that long, and I ain't writing nothing down like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I ain't got time to be writing all this down. You have a whole pamphlet of YouTube questions and talking points. I'm like, no, I ain't got time for that. But it's big. And I think this is where parents, sometimes we don't understand children's body languages. And sometimes we do overreact because of their body language. But I don't think they have the capacity. And that's a learned process that needs to be taught over time. So when they become adults, they understand the importance of eye contact, how you sit in your chair. I still sit in the chair like back straight, hands on my thighs, the way they teach you in the service. So
Right.
anytime I go out, outside of eating dinner, if I'm going like my interview, I'm sitting in the office like this, but I'm comfortable that way. I loved it. So yeah, just last thing, even in talking business and talking anything, I guess to grow, a lot of times you just need to watch the person's body language and they'll tell you if they're willing to either help you, work with you, or just, really give you the true information you needed to be better. So yeah, always.
Gotcha.
And eye contact, the eyes is one of those underrated things. People looking out to the left and the right and while you talking to them and not at least glancing at your eyes a little bit, they might be a little fishy, might be up to a little something. So always watch the eyes.
Gotcha. And we're going to talk about that certainly in this next segment. So we spent a lot of time. We spent certainly an hour plus talking about these stoppers to conversation because I think a lot of times it's the things that we're not doing is what's oftentimes being barriers to conversation, barriers to effective communication than what we actually are doing. And it's so easy a lot of times to get into these things also. So again, lecturing, blaming, interrupting, or being overbearing, giving unsolicited advice, criticizing, sarcasm, body language. These are things that, again, just as the human species, we can kind of fall into. It takes work, it takes active participation if you want a different outcome than these, which is so easy for us to fall into. So let's talk a little bit about, again, what are some of the positives? What can we do? Certainly with what we're given. So again, what are the encouragers? So we talked about the stoppers to effective communication. What are the encouragers to better communication than those things that oftentimes beset us? So let's get into some of these in terms of what encourages. So again, having empathy, genuine empathy for someone. Now again, I look at empathy different from sympathy, right? Empathy is basically saying I understand your perspective. That's really what it is being able to not always look at things through your lens, but can you see where a person is coming from, what they're saying? That doesn't mean that you have to agree with it. That doesn't mean that you have to take on the burden of that person. So a person might be mad about something. That doesn't mean that you have to be mad about it. That's where sympathy comes in. Sympathy is when you take on the emotional burden of the person who is going through whatever it is that they're going through. So again, you may not feel the same about a situation that that person is. I can't tell you how many times my daughters came home being upset about something that, quite frankly, in my mind, I was like, I don't know why you're upset about that. But what I try to do is say that I can understand why you were upset about that or why it upset you. Do I agree with it that you should have gotten upset over it? I'll probably still say no, but at least I could understand how that would upset you based on how you think and your perspective or whatnot. I can understand that. So, but again, empathy is a great way where you can engage with a person, but you don't have to take on their burdens at the same time. So again, your thoughts on this one? Having empathy for a person that takes certainly a level of patience and understanding to see things from another person's perspective. Your thoughts on that?
This always been a unique one for me, right? Because I always understood that I always have to meet someone that I'm helping where they are. I'm going to meet them where they are. So I'm going to try to understand. the conditions. I'm going to try to I may not always necessarily understand how they feel because they feeling sometime are fleeing because in the moment of I guess the height of the issue, their feelings may be irate. They ain't listening to nobody. They talking. They interrupting. They rolling their eyes. They stomping their feet. They doing everything to say I'm not listening. So I've always, once I got the story from the outside source, now I need to hear the story from where your lens is. Explain to me. Don't tell me anything anybody else did.
Mhm.
Only tell me what you did.
Right.
What was your response? Okay. So now tell me what happened. See, now they had to reflect on the responsibility, how they responded, if they threw a desk, if they punched somebody, whatever response they had. Now, and even there's been time where this person did this, I can say, you know what, I can understand how you felt. Uh, uh, you know, I can see how you might have punched somebody, but was that the best thing to do? No, I could have did something different. What could you have done different? Man, I could have just came and got you, Mr. Coach Ferguson. Yeah, you're right. You're right. But or anybody else, or anybody, you know what I'm saying? Instead of you overreacting, and now we here. So, you know, that's the catch 22 for them because they're in the moment. And I've always understood that because I understood outside of school what they may be up against. I'm gonna call the parent. Give me your father's number. Who you stay with? Give me his number. I'm gonna talk to the man. A lot of times wasn't the case, but the ones that I did, I had a heart-to-heart conversation. Like, listen, I need your support. I need it. And a lot of times they'd be like, man, sir, please do everything you got to do. You got my 100. And I used to always have my phone on speakerphone. Because, you're working in the school, you got them old office phones that you can put on speaker.
Yeah.
Sound like it can vibrate through the whole school. So I've always had it in a voice tone where they can hear it. So when I'm asking questions, they're getting the same answer I'm getting in real time. I don't have to explain.
Gotcha.
And then once I was always able to do that, I understand, yes, however, we know that that's not right. So can we move better? Now we can work on things we can do so when you have those triggers, you can avoid it. You won't overreact. You won't jeopardize uh, anything about what you're trying to do. Your health, your safety. You don't jeopardize those things. You can walk away from it, unscathed without losing anything, time in school, losing a job, things like that. So yeah, I've always been that type of person to empathize, but not too long though. A YouTube, I don't empathize with none of that shit they got going on, Mr. Bennett. I ain't gonna lie. I don't empathize with that. For what? Everybody on YouTube got a story about life. We've all heard the stories of something happened and wasn't kosher. However, you keep striving, you keep going, you do the things that you need to do once you realize that something ain't right.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha. And just certainly for the person who is empathetic, at the same time, don't get so pulled into what the person is communicating, certainly in their emotions, that you allow yourself to be brought down to it. Because some people want you to basically be where they are.
mhm.
You want to be in a place where, again, you can understand, but you don't have to get into that place. If they're pissed off at everybody and they want to do something destructive, they just want to get around people who's just going to egg them on. It's like, yeah, go ahead and do that thing. Yeah, you right in this. That may not be certainly the best environment for them. Don't get put into that trap also. Because I see people who get upset when you say, yeah, I get what you're saying, but why aren't you feeling the way I'm feeling? Because I don't feel the way you feel. And then they want to leave because of that. Now, again, that may be unavoidable, but don't allow yourself to take on a mindset that is, again, negative for you, that could be destructive in certain ways when a person is having certain feelings. You don't have to entertain every thought like that. But at the same time, having understanding, like, I hear what you're saying. I'm just not going, okay, let's go and beat somebody up. Nah, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? So you got to be mindful of that, and know the difference between the two. All right, the next one here, again, reflection. Again, being able to consider what somebody has said, and then come back and say, you know what, I heard what you said, and I reflected on it, and you had some good points there. That lets a person know, because again, you might not be able to get everything that you want out in the moment that you're there, but the fact that you can recall and bring up a conversation from back in the day in the future, that lets them know that you've been thinking about them, you've been thinking about what was said, and that you were paying attention to what was being said. Sometimes revisiting something later when you've had a chance to think about it, because a lot of times people try to dump stuff on you right away, and a lot of times you're like, you know what, I need to, let me ruminate on this a little bit before I respond to a situation or whatever. So again, sometimes it's good to take a pause, reflect on what was said. Also, it gives you an opportunity to choose the words that you would say, not necessarily in the moment. It gives you an opportunity to really come back with a response that is, again, more positive, more well thought out than just speaking in the moment. Because sometimes you can say some things that even happened the other night also, where someone said something, I was like, well, that probably might not have been the best thing to say in that particular situation, because you didn't know necessarily about everything that was going on in that situation. So yeah, you might need to pull back on that one. I mean, so again, your thoughts on, again, reflecting, certainly when a person says something, certainly being able to really show and demonstrate that you have been listening by being able to come back to something once you have a chance to think about it. Your thoughts on this one, Coach?
My bad, man. I'll be on mute. I think it's something I've always been able to do. I remember just laying in my bed sometimes, just reflecting about stuff I did, stuff I want to do, going to the military, going to college. I wanted to play football. I used to daydream about I used to see, I used to sleep. Well, I used to call it dreaming, but I was daydreaming about me going into games and scoring a touchdown or making a big play. Um, since I got married, man, that's all I do is reflect. Like, man, I'm glad that I'm in this space. I'm glad that I'm not out here trying to date and, figure things out. I'm glad I was able to sort of figure it out and, allow who I was to be seen by a woman that was definitely in the right space in life, right head space. And, just, I don't know, man, putting me in a place of peace. Like I say, shit, being retired 3 years exactly, almost 3 years to the T, August. And I can look back and say, man, I came a long way. A lot of it with my hard work, a lot of with people that I believe truly love me, holding me accountable early, setting an expectation for me early, but also allowing me to find myself in the journey of life. My parents never told me what I couldn't do. Never. They never told me don't let no. They 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 used to tell me don't let nobody tell you no.
Gotcha.
And in my peer group, I've always wanted to be somebody that's going to compete. You in high school the same year as I was, whether you was 2 years younger as a freshman and I'm a senior, I'm a senior. I mean, I'm a freshman and somebody else is a senior. I'm gonna give you a run for your money. That's me. But younger guys, hey, I ain't racing nobody trying to prove a point. But you, Mr. Bennett, I'll race you. You my peer, I'll race you. Brothers, that's I believe, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Our pain, he's out of my league. I wouldn't race our pain. He's too old. I mean, saying based off, he's not my peer. He's 10 years our pain to me is a Mr. Pain. See, that's the only thing I would refer to him. If it was Mr. Pain, because he's a Mr. to me. But everybody that 4 year up and down, man, y'all can get it. I'm gonna run over you. But that's my mindset. Not saying that I would do it, but we gotta compete. We in the workforce together, brother Benny. You see what I'm saying? So who is that, Fanny P? What's up, Fanny P? Salute. Thank you for dropping in, sister. You've been MIA for a while. And I know you've been reflecting based off our topic. Thank you for stopping by, Fanny P. Man,
Absolutely.
she's real out here, man. She used to be giving them hell over on them channels, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, moving on to our next point here. Again, smile, nodding, eye contact. Coach talked about that earlier. Be engaged in the conversation. Don't be looking away. Don't be on your phones. Again, if you really engage with that person, again, it makes the communication that much better. Just letting the person know that you're interested in what's being said. So again, I think that is certainly something that is again very important. I don't think we necessarily have to spend a lot of time on this one, Coach, but I think this is pretty straightforward. It makes certainly sense. Who wouldn't want to be in a conversation like this? So again, things that actually build effective communication. Again, your body language, your participation, without even saying a word, says a lot in terms of what you're bringing certainly to that conversation. The next one coming up here again, reciprocation and disclosure. Again, certainly if you're building a relationship, there is going to be that sort of transfer, right, of information. Someone shared an experience with you, you certainly experience sharing the experience that you had. Okay, being transparent, willing to be vulnerable in the conversation, not just having them do all the talking. Can you relate to that in certain ways? Those are things that you can certainly do. And again, certainly for Fanny P, if you look at this scrolling at the bottom of the screen, certainly the Cash Apps are scrolling at the bottom of the screen. If you want to contribute anything, certainly you're more than welcome to do that. We appreciate you. Certainly, we appreciate you coming in tonight. So yeah, Cash Apps is definitely at the bottom. So appreciate you. Your thoughts on this one, Coach? About again, how much do you give in a particular conversation? All right. So again, the whole idea of reciprocity, giving as well as taking in a conversation. How important is that?
I think that's pretty much something that I wake up doing, man. It don't necessarily always have to be in a conversation to me. I read little stuff. I watch stuff. I watch a lot of hands-on material, a lot of documentaries, a lot of that. Like I said, I've listened to your story and people that I've been on panels with. And if it's something to sort of, I guess, move the needle that I can apply to my life, then hey, man, I'm gonna listen to it. I'm gonna consider it. I'm gonna put it in the tool belt. I may not need it today, but 5 years down the road, I'm like, okay, Brother Bennett said this, and somebody said this. Okay, let me try it. And I just go from there. I don't. Yeah, man. Disclosure. Again, I've always been in a position to sort of want to help, and sometimes it comes back to giving too much information unsolicited. But I do like to just, give full disclosure of what it is that the goal is, especially when I'm going to be in a position where I'm working with people,
Yeah,
because I'm going to give it 100%. I want somebody to at least be willing to give it 100% and see it through. Because
absolutely.
I said, I don't need the, so much the accolades of it. I don't need that. I never do it for the accolades of it. I just do it. My accolades come in seeing the other person have success. That's why I like to coach. So when they succeed, then 5, 10 years down the road, that's my success because they're productive. They're out here doing things, taking care of their family, doing the things that we talked about as kids, and seeing it come to fruition as a young man and young woman. That's always motivated me to go to those who are less fortunate. So yeah.
Gotcha.
Salute, Mo Love.
All right.
We got people
Yeah,
dropping in today,
they're all
brother
coming in
Bennett,
late.
man.
We
Yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
coming on board. Make sure when you come in, make sure you hit the like button as you come in.
Mo
Also
Love,
go to
salute,
Coach
sister.
Ferg. Certainly go back to Coach Ferg's channel also, and certainly hit the like button there as well. Certainly we appreciate that. Next point coming up again: constructive feedback and observations. Again, this is different from criticism. not saying what's wrong. Sometimes, again, constructive feedback. What went right? What did you do right in that situation? Not just what you did wrong. Looking at a situation, giving different perspective. Well, did you consider this in the situation? You know what I mean? Taking it beyond just the person, but taking it outside of them. Again, these are certainly things that can be very positive in showing a person again how to, how they can handle a situation better. Again, it's always about an improvement in a situation or relationship rather than just saying what's wrong in the situation. So again, I think this is a pretty positive. Any thoughts on this one before we go quickly? I know we, coming up, definitely want to keep the show in the 2 hours. So definitely, I may go to these last points relatively quickly. But any points that you want to have on this one before we move on to the next one?
No, I think that's something that's really sort of, I guess, missed in this space of adults looking for some type of plan. Everybody say, "What's the plan? What's the plan?" But even in building the plan, you have to be able to receive constructive criticism, constructive feedback. A lot of us come up with a plan, but it's a lot of nuances within that someone else may have experience in, and they may be able to talk you through it. They may not explain it in the most sensitive way, and so I think it's good to sort of just understand that when it comes to planning and business, a lot of us work at jobs where we can't just do what we want. They give us a plan to follow. And if we don't, your supervisor will be coming, knocking on your cubicle saying, "Hey, this was wrong, redo this," all of that. So just be open to it. That's how you grow. That's how you get better on the job. That's how you get better in life. So yeah, salute.
Gotcha. All right, next one here. We've got a couple more left. Again, understanding and acceptance. Again, that whole idea of being empathetic. I hear you. I feel you. I see where you're coming from with something. Again, just that's what people want to that sense of being said, regardless of what your background, your race, ethnicity, gender, what have you. People just want to be heard. So just being able to provide that within a conversation is going to do a lot to help the person be more open. You can have more transparent dialogue with someone simply by just being accepted. So again, a pretty common sense type of things, but we always say common sense isn't necessarily common. But again, if you can employ some of these in your dialogue with people, it can certainly go a long way with certainly improving the communication that you're having. Any thoughts on this one, Coach? Before we start to wrap this thing down, land this plane.
Yeah, man. Everything, man. When you're working with people, you have to have a sense of understanding. Everybody goes through life at different speeds, at different rates. So just if you're in a position to help, always have an understanding spirit, but never submit to the bad of it. Never submit to it. Your goal is to motivate it up out of that. And, I accept people who they are, man. Let me give a shout out to Fanny P, man, for the $10 cash out, Fanny P. It warms my heart. You know what I'm saying? You and Brother Bennett are the only two family members that appreciate me. I appreciate you to the fullest. I'm not going to lie. If I take off my glasses, you'll see my eyes puffed up because I appreciate your Fanny P, and I appreciate all the ladies joining in, man, for real. I know we're going to close out, but how long we been doing this, Brother Ben? This is our 12th week, 16th week?
Something like that. We started this like in around mid to late May. And we just kept this thing going. And, as long as you guys will have us, we'll continue to try to churn out good content. But let's try to land this. I think I got one or two more. Again, genuine humor, right? Genuine humor. Okay. Again, sarcasm, all those things can be good. But again, can you be with somebody you can laugh with? Laugh at each other, laugh with each other, not laughing, when a person's down or what have you. But again, can you keep it lighthearted and humorous between you guys? I think, again, humor certainly goes a long way in being able to break down a lot of the barriers that keep people from opening up and having that. Sometimes you just need to, have a good laugh and whatnot and be genuine about it. So I think I got maybe one more here. Let's see here. Yeah, open body language, again, as opposed to closed body language. Again, don't be looking at your phone. Don't be looking away, looking down, or whatever. I know sometimes you be in places,
Oh
brothers. I
yeah,
know, sure, the women be out there, the bodies be out there. You guys trying to talk to you, but that woman's walking by, and I know sometimes them eyes going the other direction or what have you. But certainly try to stay as much as possible. Try to keep your focus and attention on the person. Be open and receptive to what they're sharing with you. Look at them, direct eye contact, nodding, all those things certainly help with having improved communication overall. And I think
yes,
we can kind of land it here. So again,
yeah,
as we said earlier, supermarket approach,
yeah.
keep things open. I mean, Coach, and I'm going to give you the last word. You can comment on the last two, whatever you want to say here, but I'll put my closing thoughts in here. But again, how can you be better? A lot of stuff that we talked about tonight has nothing to do with what you say. A lot of it depends really on your attitude and what you're coming to the situation with. Are you genuinely concerned about the person that you're trying to engage with? Do you really want to break bonds and build connection? If you do, then some of these things should feel very natural to you. But at the same time, for those who are in need of communication, be mindful of those negative things that a person might be doing where you may say, this might not be the person I need to be talking to. Because if they're being sarcastic, if they're being dismissive, if they're always criticizing, if they're, that could be a waste of your time in dealing and engaging, especially on sensitive matters with a person like that. Find people who, again, will entertain that what you have to say, treat what you're saying seriously, and be willing to be open themselves. And I think that is something that would certainly, I think everybody would do better getting around those type of people rather than those who are always looking to, have something to say, always putting down, always, certainly just trying to, put someone else down so that they feel better about themselves. But I think that's all I had for tonight, Coach. But certainly, you can certainly, I'll give you the last points on this topic or anything else, and we can certainly, like I said, land this plane for this show.
All right, just to go backwards in the slides, open body language, especially when you communicate with somebody. I think we touched on it earlier about eye contact. Yes, ladies, if a man's talking to you and he's not giving you full eye contact, then he might be a shifty guy, and vice versa. You know what I'm saying? If you're talking to somebody and you're trying to engage with them and they're not giving you full eye contact, they may be signaling in their mind that you're not paying attention. Even at work, when the supervisor talk to you, somebody important or just a coworker, if you're not looking at them and at least glancing at them a couple of times throughout the conversation, they may be thinking, oh, they're not paying attention, and it may or may not hurt you down the road. But what was the last slide? The thing,
Well, the one before that,
so
again, the change.
humor. Yeah, just humor. Listen, man. I like I say it all the time, man. Learn to accept your ugly. Learn to love it. Learn to laugh at yourself sometimes. I accept my ugly. I got a round head on this side and a long head on this side. I accept it. I feel my, I grab it all the time. And just learn to accept your ugly. And if somebody else recognize that, oh, Coach Verg, he's bald headed, I can't get mad. I'm bald headed. It's literally I have no hair on my head, and when I shave it, I love it for it to shine. I love my head to shine. Yes. But again, man, salute to everybody in the chat, man. I appreciate the ladies that came out, everybody that commented, man. A Dub, Mo Love, everybody. Who else? Fanny P. Who else we got in the chat, man?
You getting all the ladies to come out, man. What's going on, man?
Nah, man. Who's that? Thelonious, man. Everybody, man. For real, man. We appreciate it. Again, we got maybe 14 weeks. I don't know. I'll just say 14 shows. We've been talking about everything from mental health, um, physical health. We're going to be getting into some basic financial literacies, and we're going to be trying to cover topics that are meaningful in life. So, again, y'all know Coach Ferg. When I come to other channels, I come to fight. But when I'm doing something, either with myself or brothers like Brother Bennett, we're always looking to help and provide a tool to just be better. We don't have the way. We just trying to provide a way. Two bald-headed guys giving our own bald-headed opinion, and it just may resonate somewhere down the road. So salute to everybody that really came out today, man. Great show, man.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. So yes, again, we want to thank you guys again for stopping in tonight. Certainly make sure that you hit the like button on both channels. Go to Coach Ferg. I know he's building a platform on his in his space. Also on the Sparta HQ Network. Consider, if you're not a member, consider becoming a subscriber to it. We get weekly shows and content every week, and certainly we look forward to having continued dialogue on a variety of different topics, a lot of different interests in this channel. I think you'll find something here that you can certainly benefit from. But with that, certainly for myself, Mr. Bennett, for the coach, Coach Ferg, this is the Sparta HQ Network. This is the certainly the Next Gen Training. For all of you, have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care. God bless, and we will see you next time. Good night.